Hi, welcome back to the Christmas decorating. This is episode number 2, the staircase. Only it's not just the staircase, it's going to be the galleried landing and the big beam chandelier that we have hanging up there. If you're new to the channel, I'm Tracy, this is Bertie, and welcome to our home here in Sussex, England. When we first moved here, this was a series of 4 really dark, pokey little rooms. So basically, I just pulled everything out. I pulled the ceilings down, ripped the floors out, and created this huge void in order to make this galleried landing. Now, one of the old original beams that I pulled out, I actually turned into this chandelier. So this is dating back to late 1700s, early 1800s, had it shot blasted and hung dangly lights from it. Let's start this decorating by getting our supplies together. So I'm down in the field. I'm going to take some fresh greenery, some twigs. I'm going to stop by the garage as well because I've got some garlands hanging up there. They're these white ones. Don't know if I'm going to use them or not. But anyway, I've cut the twigs down, I've got them into a workable size along with the greenery. I'm only using a little bit of fresh greenery at this stage. Most of it is going to be faux. I'm going to reuse garlands from previous years and really just put out all of my supplies. Now, I've cut some bracken from the field, which I used that last year, so I don't know if I'm going to use it again this year. I'm rounding up all the faux greenery that I've got in the house, pulling together a few decorations that I may or may not use, but I most definitely will be using pine cones. I pick these up continuously wherever I am. If there's a pine cone, it's coming home with me. I've got these gold twigs. Now there's a story behind these, so I'll tell you that in a little while. Also a box of sort of odds and sods, again, that I may or may not use. Ribbons, florist's wire, possibly some snow spray, ladders because I'm going up high, and dustpan and brush because it's going to get messy. Oh, and of course the furry supervisor, Bertie. He loves hanging out with me when I'm doing all this decorating. Right, let's get started. So I'm starting off with the beam and I put a garland on and then those white garlands, but I'm not loving it. So I've taken them off and I've brought them back down to the garage. I have been umming and ahhing over this last year as to whether or not I should change the colour of these. They're just a bit too bright white for me. So I'm thinking my favourite ever gold spray, which is this Rust-Oleum. It comes out, I'm going to call it a brass. It's the nearest brass colour that I've found in a spray, and it's really quite dull. So I like it because it's not super shiny. I'm going to just really blow it over, so I don't want 100% coverage. Aside from anything else, that's going to use a huge amount of spray and it's going to cost a fortune. I've actually managed to do all 5 of these with 1 and a little bit of a can. So it's probably cost me about £10 in total to change 5 garlands, and these were originally £19.99 each. There's 5 of them, so £100 if I was to replace them, and I've done it for £10 or so. I'm really pleased with how these have turned out. They've just knocked back that whiteness, that starkness, the coldness, and just giving it a lovely warm feeling without it being like a super shiny gold. Right, let's get on to the greenery. Now, this is very early in the day for me to be bringing greenery into the house, but up here on top of the beam, once it's in position, it's not going to be touched. It's not going to be knocked. It's not going to be moved again until I take the whole thing down after Christmas. So yes, it will dry out, but it will continue to look good up here until after the holidays. Now, if you don't happen to have a beam chandelier, then have a look around. Maybe you've got a mantle, maybe you've got a sideboard, a coffee table. It's a super easy technique of layering up without having to use any fixings to create this lovely, luscious, full look. Now, I like to do both sides. I can't reach that side, so I've got to wait for hubby to come home because he's 6'4" and I am vertically challenged, as you can see. I'm working in some faux ivy here. Real ivy would just wither within days without water. The actual secret to all of this is putting that first garland in, that faux garland, because it provides the volume and it allows things to get caught on it. So I can weave that faux ivy in and out. I can poke in the twigs, which brings the thing alive. You know, it creates this three-dimensional structure. Now I'm going to have a quick clear up because that was quite messy, and then we're going to go on to the pine cones. Now again, I'm not wiring, I am just literally going to place these in. I'm going to use different sizes and shapes just to give visual interest. Now the story on the gold twigs. So I actually bought boxes and boxes of silver and gold twigs from auction. Yeah, I know, the porters thought I'd really lost the plot this time. It was actually the boxes that they were in that I was after. These were these huge plastic boxes, 80-odd litre tubs with lids. And I put a minimum bid in of £15 and I couldn't have bought one box for that price. So that's why I've ended up with copious amounts of silver and gold twigs. So I think the twig theme is going to run through all of my Christmas decorating. Now I'm going to try a bit of snow spray up here, but as I'm doing it, I'm not actually loving it this year. So I think we will just hold off on the snow spray now until we get outside. At this stage, I'm going to leave the beam chandelier and get on with the banister, with the staircase. Probably will revisit it at the end because I do make this up on the hoof, so I don't know what I'm going to bring into the staircase. I am going to use this ribbon though. Now the smaller one I know fits this side and the bigger one will go all the way up and round because I used it last year. I'm starting off with some garlands. Now these are 2.8 meters long. They're not my favorite in the world, but they're ideal as a base. You're not actually going to see a huge amount of these when the job is finished. The ribbon is going to provide pretty much the whole fixing for the whole stair garland from start to finish. So, you know, we haven't got any wires going on here. The only time I'm actually going to use the wire is for the super heavy big fir cones. Everything else is going to be attached purely by the wire that's within this garland and the ribbon that I'm wrapping round, and I'm just taking it round and round each spindle. Now you may decide actually I don't want it on the banister. You know, you may like a handrail to be kept on the stairs, in which case you can do this whole method at the bottom of the spindles and just wrap the ribbon around each of the spindles, but at the bottom as opposed to wrapping around the handrail at the top. One reason I love this method so much is that it creates such visual interest with this galleried landing. When you look up, you can see every twist of the ribbon. So I've just fluffied up the garland and now I'm ready to start adding my faux greenery. I am using things that I use all year round. So this is not just Christmas greenery, it is out on display in different places around the house, around the cottage, all year round. I'm going to pull everything, every bit I own onto this stair garland because the rest of the house, as we get closer to Christmas, is going to be filled with fresh greenery, greenery that I cut from the garden, from the field, when we're out walking, whatever nature can provide. Now it takes time to build up a good collection of faux greenery, but I would say if you were looking to invest in some pieces, I would definitely recommend eucalyptus. It's something that can be used all year round, year in, year out, so it never goes to waste. It's just the staple of any good floral arrangement. Now this method does take time. I find it very relaxing, very therapeutic, but going round tucking in all that faux greenery into the ribbon does take time. The whole job generally takes me 2 to 3 days. So day one is normally all my prepping, getting everything together, cutting from the field, revamping, respraying anything that I think I'm particularly going to use. Day 2 is always the beam and attaching the, I think it's 7 or 8 stair garlands that I use in total. And then the next day is doing all the fluffy stuff, the wonderful stuff, actually bringing the whole creation together. And obviously how long it's going to take you, were you to do something like this, really depends on the area that you've got to cover. If you've just got one banister, then you probably do it from start to finish in a day. For me, this is the biggest installation that I do over Christmas, and I know how long it's going to take me, and I'm quite happy to set aside the time to do it. Now the faux greenery is in, I'm going to move on to the pine cones. Now I did mention wire before. The only place, actually there are 2 places I'm going to use wire. These lighter, smaller cones, I'm going to wire in on these uprights. And the second place is with the much heavier cones, particularly when I use them up high, because obviously you don't want them dropping and bonking someone on the head. The lighter cones are just going to get worked in on the handrail in between the faux garland. So once I'm happy that I've used enough fir cones, I'm now going in with the gold twigs. I'm actually really loving these twigs. I was a bit hesitant, a bit reluctant to use them because gold's not really my thing. But actually now we're not going to call it gold, we're going to call them brass. I've also found some dried gypsophila that I grew in the summer, popped to one side. So I've popped those in. And I am loving this brown pampas. I found it on Amazon and I've tried some on the uprights and I actually loved it so much. I've ordered some more off Amazon and I am going to run that through all of my Christmas. I link it in the description box below. I've got hydrangeas. Now you know how much I love my hydrangeas. And I dried loads for the fall, so I'm thinking hydrangeas might well be used in my Christmas decorating as well. So there we go, from a few base garlands and shopping my home, shopping the garden and a little bit of Amazon. This is what I've created. Let me know what you think in the comments. Are you going to be decorating your staircase if you have a staircase this year? Or are you going to be doing a similar technique on a mantle, on a coffee table, even up the wall? Thanks ever so much for watching, and I hope you're going to join me next week when there'll be some more Christmas decorating. In fact, I'm thinking, Bertie, we're going to carry on doing this hallway, do the entryway into the porch, possibly even the gates that lead onto the property. So join me next week. Have a good week. Take care.